Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays, hosted by someone's favorite film buff, Nathan. I love movies and I want to share that with you. From old originals to cult classics and foreign favorites, along with straight up drivel, WWW is your place for all things movies. Stick around and we'll leave you with a movie to watch over the weekend with your family or that special someone. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays. My name is Nathan, the host with the most, and we are going to be taking a look at the original trilogy. For our first ever episode of What to Watch Wednesdays for 2025, we are going to be taking a look at the trilogy that started it all. The first ever film trilogy of all time. That's a joke, that's not real. But we are going to be taking a look at the trilogy that started it all, that started a massive media franchise. If you don't know what I'm talking about yet, then you probably will figure it out after I say it, because tonight we're taking a look at Star Wars, the original Star Wars trilogy. These three movies are probably some of the most well-known movies of all time, so they don't need an introduction, but dang it, I'm going to give it to them anyways. Tonight's movies on the watch list are going to be A New Hope from 1977, The Empire Strikes Back from 1980, and The Return of the Jedi from 1983. These three movies are so well known and so popular that I almost didn't ever want to review them here on What to Watch Wednesdays. True story, I was almost going to make a rule to never talk about Star Wars ever during my tenure here on What to Watch Wednesdays. Why am I breaking that unwritten rule? For one specific reason. I feel like I can tell you and give you an experience and review these movies in a way that nobody else has yet. Or at least I think I will be able to. But I'm confident and I have hope. And that's a great way to lead into our first movie of the night. Because when we come back, I hope that you will hear a take on A New Hope from 1977 that you've never heard before. So stick around. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. For our first movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at A New Hope from 1977, available to watch now on Disney+. For the basic plot summary of A New Hope, for those of you who are somehow unfamiliar with it, we follow Princess Leia as she is taken hostage by the evil Darth Vader. Along the way, she gives the plans to the Death Star to her little robot droid R2-D2, and along with his friend C-3PO, they head off for the desert planet of Tatooine to find the old hermit Obi-Wan Kenobi, and give him the plans to the Death Star and hopefully destroy it. Along the way, they meet the young Luke Skywalker, and the group of them pair up so that they can go find Obi-Wan. Throughout the rest of the movie, it's about finding Princess Leia on the Death Star itself alongside Han Solo and Chewbacca and all of this other crazy stuff happening. And let me tell you right now, I am almost feeling like I over-explained the plot of the original Star Wars to you. Which is completely fine, because I want you to think about it from the perspective of you're in 1977 right now, and you just heard that explained to you for the first time. Your first reaction probably would have been something akin to the word "what" over and over again the moment I kept saying the next thing. So just keep that in mind. That was very intentional on my end. But I'm currently on a challenge. Dear listeners, ladies and gentlemen of the listening audience, I'm currently on a mission with the original Star Wars. I want to tell it to you like you've heard it all before, you've never heard it before, and then I want to take that away immediately and tell it to you like you've never heard it before. What's the difference between those two things? Well, the first version is just transporting you back to 1977 and thinking of it from the perspective of an audience member who's watching it for the first time. But now I want you to think of yourself as you are right now. And I want you to hear my take on the original Star Wars, a take that I'm hoping you've never heard of before. A take that's new to you completely. So without further ado, What to Watch Wednesdays presents my first ever review of A New Hope. Here's my review. The most important part in the original Star Wars is the death of Obi-Wan Kenobi. You heard me right. This is probably the big turning point of the film. probably the most underrated moment in the entire Star Wars canon has to be the death of old Ben Kenobi. Why? Well, let's back up and take a look at our main protagonist, Luke Skywalker. For those of you who don't know, Luke is the main protagonist of Star Wars. Yeah, duh. So, one of the big points throughout the movie is that Luke ends up losing pretty much everything over the course of the first act. It's a very standard hero's journey of his aunt and uncle being vaporized by stormtroopers. Very brutal. He has to sell his speeder. He has to leave the planet. He has to go to somewhere he's never been before, right? Throughout all of that is this man he's met before and this man that he now has to rely on for help. That being Obi-Wan. Throughout the movie, Obi-Wan abandons him on the Death Star, and he's constantly worried about death, obviously, because he's on a very evil space station. But there's always that hope that he'll see Obi-Wan again, that they may run into each other once more. And the time they do is him seeing Obi-Wan get sliced on the neck by Darth Vader. Keep in mind, this is the man who has helped him through the last hour and a half of the movie and gotten him to where he is right now, and now he is dead. Now, on the one hand, you know for a fact that Obi-Wan already figured out that he was going to turn into basically a projection through the Force and still be able to be with Luke in some capacity. I'm sure George Lucas planned that out from the very beginning. But Luke doesn't know that. He's just witnessed the death of his mentor at the hands of probably the most evil person in the galaxy. Can you imagine what's going through Luke's mind when he sees that? Everything is gone now. His reminder of his home planet of Tatooine that he hated but still grew up on is now gone, vanished before his very eyes. That right there is devastating to the audience and to Luke specifically. And it's because of that that I consider Obi-Wan's death so important. Without it, Luke would not have suffered as much. He would have had that reminder of his home planet. If he had never seen Ben die, he would have just figured it out after the fact. Or he may have just always had that weird grief of leaving him behind on the Death Star. But he saw it happen directly. He saw it with his own eyes. He suffered through that pain, that damage to his mental psyche. And through that damage, he learned to overcome it. Through that pain and suffering, the audience latched onto him more. You can't not feel bad for him, even though he's only known Ben for the last hour. You can't not feel bad for Luke because of Ben's death. And it's because of that sympathy that we then triumph with him as he destroys the Death Star once and for all. Without Ben's death, Luke's entire arc means nothing. And I know George Lucas had this planned out, and I know he wanted to do this because of Obi-Wan's line, "If you destroy me, I will become more powerful than you could ever imagine." What a line. I don't have a perfect way to transition to our next movie, but it doesn't need a perfect transition, because when we come back from the break, we are going to be talking about The Empire Strikes Back. So stick around for that. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our second movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at The Empire Strikes Back from 1980, available to watch now on Disney+. For the basic plot summary, for those of you who are somehow unfamiliar with the plot summary of The Empire Strikes Back, after fleeing the snow planet of Hoth, Luke Skywalker makes his way to Dagobah to find the mystical Jedi teacher Yoda at the request of Force Ghost Obi-Wan. I told you Obi-Wan was important. Meanwhile, we follow Han, Leia, Chewbacca, and C-3PO as they bounce around being chased by the evil Darth Vader, who is still here yet again. And funny that I should mention Darth Vader, because here's a really fun fact that seems so simple, yet blew my mind when I figured it out. Did you know that Darth Vader's theme song, you know, the infamous dun 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 dun, did you know that that was not in A New Hope? that it actually originated in The Empire Strikes Back. If you did know that, congratulations, but keep in mind that I've been watching these movies since I was a young child, and I never once noticed that the Empire March, the Imperial March more specifically, came from The Empire Strikes Back. It was made for Empire Strikes Back. It was first introduced in Empire Strikes Back. That blows my mind, but I can come up with a really good reason as to why I never noticed it. And that's because it's so iconic and it fits Darth Vader so perfectly well that when you're watching A New Hope, after watching The Empire Strikes Back, let's all be completely honest here, you hear Darth Vader's theme playing in your head when you're watching A New Hope. That's my excuse for never noticing that. And it's interesting that I'm focusing so much on Darth Vader's theme, because that leads nicely into my big rant about Empire Strikes Back, the big thing that I want to talk about that I don't think anybody really has with Empire Strikes Back. It's interesting to me how simple yet effective it is to write a sequel that evolves the villain alongside the hero. I know that sounds obvious, but I mean, think about it. The best sequels out there, off the top of my head, we've got Terminator 2, where we have Arnold Schwarzenegger being the Terminator in the original movie. He's just out to kill Sarah Connor. Then in Terminator 2, he comes back and he's actually an ally to the young John Connor, right? The villain does in fact develop as a character, and that's a robot. So keep in mind that Darth Vader is just a very evil human being rather than a robot, and you notice that he does develop between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. It was almost a surprise to me because I didn't realize the differences between the two versions of Darth Vader. In A New Hope, Darth Vader is this unrestrained, crazy villain that we're just meeting for the first time, and he's meant to be doing a lot of the stuff that he's doing because we're unfamiliar with him. It's the first movie in the series, might as well make it kind of overblown and make it new to people. Make it fresh, make it interesting, make it surprising. But in Empire Strikes Back, we're familiar with Vader to some extent. We know of him. We don't know a lot about him quite yet. We just know that he's killed Anakin Skywalker, who was Luke's father. And we know that he's done a lot of other evil things, and we know that he's killed Ben Kenobi. We know he's killed his master, and we know that he's an unrestrained madman. So over the course of Empire Strikes Back, we watch as he deteriorates a little bit more. We watch as he becomes obsessed. We see what happens when such an evil, unstoppable force has a goal. We see what happens when he wants to chase down Luke so incredibly badly that he kills off about 5 of his officers. Seriously, so many people die at the hands of Vader over the course of Empire Strikes Back that are all his officers. It is ridiculous, but it proves the point. He's dedicated now. He has a pure, defined goal, and he is not letting anything stop him. If anything, it makes him a whole lot scarier than he was in A New Hope, because he's no longer a mystery. He's just a really awful person, and we know that now. And they say that the fear of the unknown is something that can drive a horror movie. This is a space movie. This is a sci-fi epic movie, soap opera, whatever. Opera, space opera. And when you know that the villain is coming for you, it's actually kind of scary that there's a person who is willing to travel across massive distances of space just to find you. I don't know about you, but I can understand why Luke was completely horrified to see his face in Darth Vader's helmet in his Force vision. He was like, I don't want to become this monster. Which is why it's so incredibly devastating when we know that big twist, that ultimate line, that thing that defined a generation. As much as the original movie defined a generation, we all remember Empire Strikes Back as being the big one that's kind of important for the entire thing. It's that big twist that probably nobody saw coming. Probably the biggest spoiler that I definitely would not have wanted ruined for myself if I were there in 1980. When Darth Vader tells Luke that he is Luke's father, it is a heartbreaking scene for Luke Skywalker. But the thing I noticed when rewatching it over the winter break is that it's a hard thing for Vader to do as well. That sounds so strange to say out loud, but I stand by it wholeheartedly. Do you notice that Darth Vader clearly wants Luke to be on his side? Do you notice that Vader is clearly trying to reach out to his son that he's alienated from? He wants him with him. He wants to join with Luke and rule over the galaxy. He wants something. He wants a relationship. That's what he's trying to do. And you may disagree with that of him wanting a relationship. I will fight till the end of the earth that he wants a relationship with Luke. He's just so incredibly evil that he doesn't know what a healthy relationship looks like. He thinks that a healthy relationship is ruling the galaxy for all of the rest of time, when that is not what Luke wants at all. It's heart-wrenching, and it still gives me chills to this day. It's something that makes Empire work so incredibly well, so perfectly. And this isn't even my favorite of the trilogy. I like the original movie a lot more. But I will fully concede to the fact that Empire Strikes Back is probably a better made movie than the original film. And speaking of my favorite, or the debate between the favorite, when we come back from the break, we will jump into the movie that was my favorite when I was a kid, when growing up, and that will be Return of the Jedi. So stick around for that. Your Movie Central, welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. For our third and final movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Return of the Jedi from 1983, available to watch now on Disney+. For the basic plot summary of Return of the Jedi, if you're not familiar with it somehow, is regarding the Empire as they begin to construct the second Death Star. While they're doing that, the Emperor himself shows up to oversee the process. Meanwhile, throughout the course of the movie, we follow Luke, Han, and Leia as they must charge forward to stop the second Death Star from being used to cause any more destruction than the first one was used for. And they must go in different paths to ensure this. What with Han and Leia being on the forest moon of Endor, and Luke going after his ultimate enemy, Darth Vader, and by extension, the Emperor. Very interesting plotline, considering that there's an entire first act devoted to getting Han back after what happened to him in Empire Strikes Back, where they have to go and confront Jabba the Hutt for the first 40 minutes. But that's not important. That's not a major deterrent to the pace at all. And I'm not being sarcastic here. It really isn't. It's actually kind of fun to watch that part. It's just not as super conventionally structured as the first two movies, right? So, we've got our basic plot summary, right? And we've got an understanding that this movie does center around there being a second Death Star in the process of being built. And then we know that there are Ewoks on the forest moon of Endor, and some people don't like the Ewoks. And this is where I say that a very well-known opinion is that The Return of the Jedi is not the most loved out of the original trilogy. Many people say it's not the best of the original trilogy. People say it's not the best of the original trilogy. And I'd have to agree with it after rewatching it. Funnily enough, I would not agree with you if I was a child. I would tell you, full stop, that it was my favorite of the original trilogy. For whatever reason, I don't exactly know why. I hope it wasn't the Ewoks, but I can't say it wasn't the Ewoks with a full level of certainty. So we're just going to disregard why I would think that for a moment and just kind of confront the fact that, yes, Return of the Jedi is not the best of the original trilogy. It certainly doesn't measure up perfectly to the highs of Empire Strikes Back or even the highs of A New Hope in some areas. But I mean, it's still part of the original trilogy. Come on, it's still a good movie. It's still a very good movie, and I could still highly recommend watching The Return of the Jedi. So, what does that leave us with? Why that leaves us with the big thing I want to say about Return of the Jedi that I haven't heard of before. The thing that I think is original when talking about this movie specifically. And it's this. As I've mentioned, the Emperor shows up to oversee the process of the Death Star, and it's implied throughout the entire movie that he's been a massive orchestrator through his massive outreach and his high levels of power. He's been orchestrating things behind the scenes for a very long time. He's got this whole thing planned out of how he will finally defeat the rebellion, right? And funnily enough, when I was taking a step back, I realized, yeah, I mean, if certain things hadn't happened, he would have won. The Emperor would have won. Palpatine would have completely crushed the rebellion had it not been for a couple things. Specifically, the Ewoks. Yes, the Ewoks are stupid. In my opinion, the Ewoks should have been bigger. They should have been more resembling bears and been a little more frightening than just looking like stupid little teddy bears with buck teeth. But they did make the difference. Their involvement in the attack on the shield generator did in fact make some form of difference. Which is probably why people don't like them. People don't like it when the dumb characters become plot relevant. And I didn't exactly love them this time around either. I used to love the Ewoks as a kid, because I was a kid. But as an adult, I can admit, they are a little stupid. But if it hadn't been for them, well, would the Emperor's plan still have worked? I would say yes. There was only one other factor that I was thinking about while watching this movie that I was like, this is the reason that this plan didn't work. What is that factor? Why, it's Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is probably the big factor holding it up. The whole reason the plan doesn't go through. Without his involvement in Darth Vader turning against Palpatine, I don't think that it would have worked. If Luke had kept going and had actually won against Vader during their lightsaber fight and become an evil man, even if he had changed his mind, even if he had been killed off by Palpatine later, Palpatine's plan still would have gotten through, because Luke would have defeated Vader to the point where he wouldn't have been able to throw Palpatine off the ledge. It was a combined effort between the two of them. That's such a weird and kind of scary thought to have, that the most iconic trilogy in the history of film would have ended with all of the main characters losing. I think it's plausible. I think there was stakes for this movie. I think that's what makes this movie work, is that even though there's a second Death Star, and yes, that is stupid, they would not have gotten in without that shield thing being destroyed, and without the Ewoks' help. Sure. Would they have blown up the Death Star? Yes. But they would have also blown up Luke, possibly. Luke may have died. That's still considered a loss. There still would have been a loss on some end if things had gone just a little bit differently. The only thing that stopped it, in my opinion, was Luke realizing through the course of his arc that he would rather be dead than be Darth Vader. He would rather have died than be Darth Vader. And while it would have been considered a loss, would that have been a good conclusion to his arc? Yes, if Luke had died, it still would have been a good conclusion to his arc. And the funniest thing is that that's not in my notes. I just came up with that. Luke dying at the end of Return of the Jedi still would have completely fulfilled his arc. He would have fully stood up to the Emperor and said, no, I will not become Darth Vader. I will not have that happen. And it still would have been considered a victory. That's crazy that I was able to surprise myself while talking about these movies. Which means it should becoming as no surprise that this is going to be the end of the show for tonight. Thank you all for listening in to What to Watch Wednesdays tonight. First show of the quarter back, first show of 2025. I'm really pumped for the remainder of this year. It's going to be great. Please do stick around for the rest of it. Please do follow What to Watch Wednesdays on Instagram at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word, no caps, no spaces. And follow the YouTube channel at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word, no caps, no spaces. You should get the channel if you enter that in. And what else? Oh, yes. This Saturday, more specifically, will be the episode of What to Watch Weekends, where I talk about all the rest of the Star Wars movies. Yes, all the rest of them. That will include the prequels and the sequels and Rogue One and Solo. So tune in for that. I'm really excited. That'll be here on 88.1 The Burg from 8 to 10 p.m. And next Wednesday will be the next broadcast of What to Watch Wednesdays from 8 to 9 p.m. here on 88.1 The Burg. So I hope to see you there, where I'll be telling you all what to watch. Good night.